Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 17th Verzió Film Festival. My name is Noemi Szakony. I'm a freelance director and producer from Hungary. I'm going to moderate tonight's discussion. Let me introduce our distinguished guests from various countries who joined us tonight's panel to share their knowledge and also talk about financing documentaries in Europe. Here is with us Vítězslav Hovanec. At the Czech Film Fund, Vítězslav is responsible for promotion of Czech documentary and short films abroad and consults festival strategies of upcoming films. He is also a member of the programming team of the One World Human Rights Film Festival in Prague. We have also Ferenc Varsányi from the Hungarian Film Institute here. Ferenc is a daytime Emmy-winning director. He is currently an advisor for the Hungarian Media Council and president.
I have some connection problem. I can't hear you perfectly. There is an internet connection problem, I think. Maybe just on my part. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think we can hear you.
Okay.
The team will solve the problem.
No, it's much better. It's much
better. Okay. We have also Ferenc Varsányi from the Hungarian Film Institute. He's currently an advisor for the Hungarian Media Council and president of two committees of the National Film Institute. He's also teaching at MOME University and works as a screenwriter, film director, and co-producer on his own project. One of our other guests is Ravn Vighaug. Ravn is a senior advisor on short film and documentaries, and he also oversees documentary co-production at the Norwegian Film Institute. Let me introduce you to Maria Gradovska-Tomov. Maria has worked for the Polish Film Institute for more than a decade, serving as a festival and international projects manager. She was responsible for promoting Polish documentaries and animation abroad. She has been heading the International Relations Department since July 2019. Here is also Anna White. Anna is documentary film commissioner at the Swedish Film Institute. In 2015, she produced Detained, which was nominated for the Prix Europa and won the Swedish Guldbagge Award for Best Documentary. Since 2012, she has worked at Monterey Film, one of Sweden's most prominent film production companies. And last but not least, here is Christopher Petar Marcich. Christopher is the Chief Executive Officer of the Croatian Audiovisual Center. He comes from an international management experience as he has been president of the board of the Association of Audiovisual Producers and their collective rights management groups, and he's responsible for coordination of the Motion Picture Association international offices. He has also spent 16 years working in the US government on international trade issues as a negotiator shaping US trade policy. Please welcome everyone. Before we dive into the conversation, I would like to let you know that if you have any questions, please leave your message on the website or on the Facebook, because we will have a Q&A after the conversation. So Chris, let's start with you. The Croatian Audiovisual Center usually supports, as far as I know, but please correct me if I'm wrong, 6 to 12 feature and many more short and mid-length documentaries each year, which I believe is a great number. Can you please tell us more about the details of documentary financing? How is the process on your side?
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, we, in fact, in last year, in 2019, we had 15 feature-length documentaries, I think 5 minority co-productions, and a smaller number, 8 or 10 short documentaries that we financed. The process is similar to the process we use for all other films that we finance here. We run competitions, essentially, bids, projects, and periodically through the year, and invite proposals from filmmakers for various categories. One of them is documentaries as a category. And there we get proposals for for feature-length documentaries, shorts, and minority co-productions. So those are evaluated, first of all, by our own services who look at the applications, and then by an artistic advisor who is someone who is expert in documentaries, basically. And in this case, she actually for the last 2-3 years, the person recommends projects to our council, which then votes them through. We, of course, can't finance all of the applications we get, and so there's some selection that goes on, and the budgets that are approved range from, you know, a high of maybe 100,000 euros down to 15,000 euros for feature-length films. And for co-productions, they've ranged from as much as 36,000 euros, I think 40,000, something like that, and then down to 10. So it just depends on the projects. I expect our budgets for documentaries, and especially for co-productions, next year to rise. So we will have, there's an interest in promoting co-productions generally, so that budget should go up. So that's basically our approach. We have a couple festivals that focus on documentaries here, Zagreb Docs, but also Opatija, for example, which is a very interesting little festival on the coast that takes place at the end of the summer. So all in all, there is a strong documentary sector in this country and an interest in co-productions.
Yes, I feel Zagreb Docs is great, and to pitch there, it's a really good opportunity for documentary filmmakers. I was wondering if someone received development support from the Film Fund, is it like they naturally receive then production support, or how are the phases?
Yeah, there's also development support that is allocated in a separate category, and yeah, of course, we support development as well. So project development, but script development. So there's an array of support mechanisms that we offer.
And what kind of projects are you looking for where it comes to a feature documentary, for example?
Well, I don't think there's a specific type of project that we would be looking for. I think there's probably something of a difference between local stories that we need to tell that maybe there's less of an interest in outside of Croatia or outside of our linguistically similar region. But then I think more and more there will be an interest in stories that have more international reach, more interest for other countries and for co-productions. So you know, it's varied. In the feature space, I think some of the documentaries that we've made in recent years are quite oriented to our own audiences, but some are quite attractive, I think, internationally.
Thank you. Let's go to the Czech Republic. Vítězslav, you have in the Czech Republic great documentary workshops, platforms, festivals, and last but not least, amazing documentary filmmakers and films which are successful not just internationally, but also domestically. 2019, there were a total of 40 documentaries produced, of which 21 were distributed in Czech cinemas. And the biggest box office success was Trabant, There and Back Again, seen by more than 50,000 moviegoers, which is a great number. So can you please tell us about the secret behind the success of documentaries, films in Czech Republic?
Well, there are, I would say, the films which are successful in Czech cinemas are usually different films than the films which are successful at festivals. For example, this Trabant movie, it's about traveling. So this is something what cinema goers are happy to see in cinemas. But there is one exception. This year we have a film Caught in the Net, and it is success at the festivals as well as in Czech cinemas. It made a record, like the record since the whole history in Czech cinemas for documentary. And it was also screened in many festivals. It started at CPH Docs in the competition. And so, yeah, I think there is a possibility to have something like quality. I don't want to call it mainstream, but it can be maybe called like that in documentary sphere as well, and to be successful both in like in critical acclaim in festivals and with audiences. But usually the films which are successful in cinemas are maybe portraits of famous people in Czech Republic, but maybe they are not that much known outside, so they are not traveling these films. But we have luckily also films which are traveling around festivals, and so which is great. And we have also great new filmmakers, like new generation. There is a lot of women filmmakers as well, which finished school, FAMU in Prague, and they are making great debuts and second films right now.
Yes, I've read that the Czech Film Fund supports young documentary filmmakers, and last year they supported three filmmakers, three female filmmakers with their second feature film. Can you tell us more about that? Is there an incubation program for documentary filmmakers, and how do you have your talents going?
Well, basically, the fund aims to support newcomers, but it's not obligation. It's always about the quality of the applications. If the project is artistically really good, and we seek films which are, let's say, films with international appeal. So films which are not only for local audience, and these are mostly supported by the Czech Film Fund. And of course, we want to give support to the like renowned filmmakers as well as the young ones, to all generations possibly. But it depends, of course, on the applications. You never know in advance what you can do.
And how does the financing system work? So do you have like different phases also, development, production, post-production? How does an application look like?
I think it's very similar as Chris said. We also support development and also production. And besides this, also minority co-productions. This call for minorities are together for all types of the films, animation, documentary, and fiction. And we have a council of 9 people, and they read all the applications. We have also a pool of experts. They write economic analysis and content analysis. And this analysis is like a supported document for the council to make a decision. And there is a call once per year for development and for production, until from the deadline in 3 months. The applicants receive the information whether they got supported or not. And there is also, after the application, usually they are invited for personal meeting to maybe discuss or to fill in the gaps maybe in the application, to discuss more into detail some things. So this is basically the process.
Great, thank you so much. Anna, it seems that 2019 was a great year for Swedish documentaries. Last year, among the 51 Swedish feature-length releases, there were 22 documentaries, and half of the films had women filmmakers in key roles. Apart from that, many of the films premiered at top-tier international film festivals, and for the second year in a row, a Swedish film won the Docs Award at CPH. So first of all, how do you do that? It's also...
Hi, everyone. Well, I won't take any credit for that because I just started. I'm a new documentary film commissioner since mid-August this year, and that's how it works at the Swedish Film Institute. There is we have 2 commissioners for documentary film. We're appointed for a period of 3 years that can be extended to up to 5 years, and then it changes, and there will be another commissioner, and we take decisions on all applications that are directed to us independently. Me and my colleague Juan Pablo Libozart, who is the other documentary film commissioner, we receive applications both for long and short documentaries and take our decisions without discussing with anyone, although the CEO approves the production grants formally. But I think the success, of course, it depends on, it's thanks to the filmmakers, and there's a long tradition in documentary filmmaking in Sweden and a quite strong community, I think. And maybe it's also a lot about the diversity, actually, that there's different kinds of documentary being made in Sweden, ranging from very personal essay, like one woman team documentaries, up to very high production value investigative documentaries. So I think that builds up a critical mass of films, making it possible to be successful as a production country.
It sounds great. And can you please tell us more also about the system? So they apply for development, and is it automatic that they receive a production grant, or how does it work?
Yeah, you can also apply for development and for production, and there's no automatic production support granted. We give or grant more development supports than we are able to follow through production support. I would say I can grant around 10 production grants per year, and then maybe 20 to 30 development grants, and my colleague the same. We have a budget of 2 million euros each per year, and 100,000 of those are 200,000 of those are earmarked for minor minority co-productions. Yeah,
it's really, really nice to hear that. And let's go to Hungary now. This year, the Hungarian Film Institute received a high number of documentary applications for television and VOD platforms, and they decided to support 49 projects, which is a record number. Ferenc, can you please tell us more about the new structure of the National Film Institute regarding the financing of documentary projects for television, VOD, and also for cinema?
Yes, the system is a little bit different in case of the TV films and movies for cinemas. There are 3 stages, as the others mentioned, in case of the movies, like pre-production, production development, and production. But it is just for the cinemas. The situation is slightly different in case of the TV films, where there are 9 categories altogether. The first one is documentary, as you mentioned, extremely high number of documentary productions applied in this year. I don't know if there were any years where so much documentary came to the institute like in the previous years. And which is very good. We were very happy that there were so many productions. But in case of the TV films, there is no pre-production stage, no development stage, just production stage, only production. But there is a very important criteria that you need a broadcaster, a letter of intent some kind of broadcaster, because the institute would like to be sure that the production will be broadcast somewhere in a TV channel. This is a very important criteria. Altogether, in case of the documentaries, there are three categories. The first one is a short documentary. The length of the short documentary is between 21 until 28 minutes. There is a longer, which is from 42 until 55. And there are series, of course, documentary series with 2 parts, which can be exactly the same length altogether, like the longer one. I mean, maximum 55 minutes. And the budget in case of the shorter documentaries is 10 million per film. For the longer, 20 million Hungarian forint. And for the documentary series, for 2 parts, 10 million Hungarian forint per part, per episode. And what else would I like to say about documentaries? Yes, which is very important. From this year, there are much flexible possibilities for the co-productions to compare to the previous media patronage program. It means that the minimum percentage must be 5%, the maximum 80%. And all other figures depends on the negotiation between the co-producers, between the Hungarian producer and the foreign producer. So between the 5 and the 20, all kind of percentage could work. It just depends on the negotiations, which is, I think, more flexible to compare to the previous years. And there are 2 types of documentaries, one for the television broadcast, and there is another one for the cinemas as well. It means that these documentaries for cinemas must be the same length like a long feature film, for example. And this is a very big challenge for the filmmakers to be sure that the audience will watch a long documentary films in the cinema as well, not just front of the TV set, because usually the people go to the cinemas to watch live action movies, long feature animated films, and just very rarely for documentaries. But there is a possibility, the Hungarian art cinema network, which can distribute that kind of longer documentary films as well. So there are different possibilities for all kind of projects for distribution and for broadcasting as well.
And if it comes to a feature-length documentary, what are you looking for at the Film Institute? What kind of projects?
There is no regulation, actually. Which is very important is the subject, a good subject. And also it's very important that the director and the producer and operator, the cameraman must get some references, good references, which can prove for the Film Institute that this project will be a really good a project will invite the audience into the cinemas. So no other criteria, just good subjects, good team, and the possibility to show many people in the cinemas. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Norway. Ron, as I understood, the Norwegian Film Institute administers several subsidy schemes, and for documentaries, you have documentaries without cinema release, Norway scheme, documentary series, and documentaries with cinema release, which is very interesting for me. Can you please elaborate on that? How does it work in Norway?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. So you mentioned 3 different options. There's documentaries for cinema release and documentaries without cinema release, and then there's the incentive scheme, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll start with the 2 first documentaries. And so there's Now, I don't know, do you want this from a co-productions perspective or like a total, I guess, total? There is possible to do development for our documentaries, our documentary filmmakers in Norway. There is development, and they're often kind of split into 4 or 5 development phases. There's also production funding as well. For co-production, though, there's only production, not development as an option. There's a different way of evaluating a project for cinema that kind of applies. It comes in terms of we had, and this will change, we had this kind of a funding after the release, and there's some specific numbers to formulate those kind of funding. Is called the etterhåndsstøtte, which is basically like support after production, which is kind of an automatic function. It's only for the cinema release project though. And since it actually is going to go offline next year, we won't speak that too much about that now, because it won't be really applicable. But the only thing we look at when it comes to like different releases and platforms are that, well, the more platforms and options you have, the lesser support you'll probably get. It's a little bit of a evaluation in sense of like how much potential the project has or not. So it's kind of weird to tell you, but the less ambitious you are, the more you can actually get in support, which kind of is a little bit confusing to me as well. So I will not go into that. But it's something that we will basically remove, so it's not essential. When it comes to production support for co-productions, there are some good numbers to look at. I don't know do you guys use Hungary forint or do you use euro?
Hungarian forint in Hungary.
So if you're looking to do a co-production with Norway, you need a major in your country, Hungary, and you'll need the minor in Norway, and the minor is the one who applies the NF5 for support. This minor can apply between something like 8,350,000 Hungary forint up to 26,723 Hungary forint. So in euros, it's like 23,000 and up to 74,000. You can apply this for production. You cannot apply this for development, unfortunately, but that might change next year. We're actually developing a new strategy for documentaries, and we're looking into co-productions, especially like a big thing to take away from this year with the pandemic and all, is we kind of realized that there's really important to put more money into development. That's probably one of the things you could do really safely, and then not limited to the rules of the authorities. So we're probably going to boost that. We're probably going to open up for co-production development next year, but as it is now, there's not an option for that. When it comes to an incentive scheme, it's a situation where they kind of calculate how much money you put into Norway, and you kind of get that in support to pay for those costs. So it's basically a thing that balances out. It's more applicable to the feature films fiction, and it's still I think it's applicable for documentaries, but there's not been a lot of those, in the sense that there's a lot of value in doing the whole production in Norway. We do open up for co-productions without shooting in Norway as well. We do have a couple of options for you to consider when it comes to post-production. You could do there's always a kind of an evaluation of the spend. Basically, the more creative the spend is, the more options you'll have financing us from us. But it's not limited to, like, you could also do a post-production, parts of the post-production in Norway as well. You don't have to have the director from Norway. It's not that strict. Yeah.
And great. It was a lot of information. Thank you. And how does the selection criteria work? So what kind of documentaries you are looking for, and how many documentaries do you support a year?
Yearly, we have like 5 to 8 of them yearly, and that translates into yearly like 5.9 million euros. Let me do a quick math for you. So that's like, it's really confusing to say the Hungary currency, by the way, because it's like millions, but it's like 213 millions basically in Hungary forint yearly. Amount. That sounds a lot to me. It's a little bit less though in euros and Norwegian, of course. But there's a substantial amount, and we don't really have like a limit to it has to be 8 or it has to be 10 or it has to be 5. That's kind of like random. Like if we have a lot of good co-production applications, we will support more co-production. So we're not kind of forcing our commissioners to use X amount of money on this. We're saying if there's good projects, let's support them. And when it comes to what kind of projects, as I think probably most of the people who said here, we're open for anything. If it's a good project, then it's a welcome project.
Great, thank you so much. Maria, last year brought almost 400 screenings at 215 international festivals. Polish documentaries were invited to the competitions almost like 250 times, thanks to which they won 79 awards and special mentions, which is a lot. So can you please reflect on that success and also tell us more details about the documentary financing? How is the process? How many phases do you have? And so on.
Sure, thank you. So actually, yes, documentaries are pretty strong in Poland, and we do have some successes. In recent years, we have scored 2 student Oscars. We're actually present at every important documentary festival. There were also in last 5 years, 3 years in a row, we won in Locarno. So yes, so documentary is doing quite good in Poland. Basically, we do have 2 schemes. One is selective scheme, and we support projects from development through production. We also support promotion. There are usually 3 calls per year, and the projects are evaluated based on the screenplay. So the artistic value is the most important criterion here. And there is a separate scheme for minority co-productions. So this, when we are talking about minority co-productions, there are only 2 calls per year. And usually one is in January, another one is in September. And when it comes to national productions, the projects are evaluated in 2 stages. There are selection committees who recommend projects for the decision of the general director of the Polish Film Institute, who then later issues the decision. When it comes to minority co-productions, there is only 1 call, and I mean there are 2 calls, but there is only one stage of evaluation. And usually we're also inviting producers and filmmakers to maybe not to pitch the projects, but more to answer the doubts of the selection committee. So I think the basic criteria would be similar as everywhere. We have already ratified a convention on cinematographic co-production, which means that the Polish contribution must account at least 10% of the total budget in case of bilateral co-production, and at least 5% in case of multilateral co-production. At least 80% of the subsidy must be spent in Poland. And the remaining sources must be confirmed by letter of intents, memo deals, or co-production agreements. And also, when it comes to documentaries, we need at least one of the Polish elements, or use of Polish archives, either Polish character or subjects, but I think it would also work similar everywhere. And one also important thing, if the director is Polish, even if it's minority co-production from Polish side, then we treat a co-production as a Polish project, which means it can get higher subsidy, but it also means that it would compete with national projects in two stages of evaluation. What we are looking for. It's exactly like as everyone mentioned, we are looking for projects with a potential interesting track record. Usually, either it doesn't matter whether it would be a young filmmaker or an established filmmaker, but we prefer, if it's a young director, we prefer an experienced producer on board. So this would be basically it for the selective scheme. And since a year and a half ago, we also launched a cash rebate scheme, finally. So this works completely differently. If we're talking about selective scheme, usually the main criteria is the screenplay and high artistic potential. When it comes to 30% cash rebate scheme, it's totally like economic scheme, totally automatic, on first come, first served basis. So you can apply any time of the year. And here we are also TV series are eligible, because in selective scheme TV series are not eligible, but here in automatic scheme both co-production services and feature length and TV series are eligible. So for documentary feature, the film needs to be at least 40 minutes long, and there are also minimum spend which you need to spend in Poland. So it's mostly dedicated to higher budget productions. And basic requirements are, the first one is a cultural qualifying test. So you need to score at least 51% of the total points you can get. It also, like, you can get points very similar actually with selective scheme for use of Polish locations or use of Polish infrastructure or participation of Polish or European talents and crew members. What else? Yeah, I told about minimum spending, but you can apply when you have already 75% of the budget in place. And the idea of the scheme is a 30% cash rebate on qualifying Polish expenses. So this is basically how it looks. We are super open for co-productions. It's our priority actually, so welcome. Like, we encourage you and encourage everyone to take a look at Poland.
And in the 2020 catalog, I saw that you supported 9 debut documentaries. Can you tell us about that? Do you have like a special emphasis on debut documentaries?
It's actually not written anywhere, but yes, we try to support. Well, we try to support young filmmakers. We try also to support women. Actually, I also checked that all the recent success of Polish documentaries, maybe not all, but there are a lot of women there. Yes, so this is very nice. Like the most important success from last year's all are made by women. Yeah, so it's not kind of a rule we have, but we just try, yes, to support young filmmakers and to facilitate for them the way to international cooperation. But and altogether, I also have checked before our panel. So altogether, we support around 50 projects per year. Altogether, like for production and for the development. There were around 60 this year, but it also because many projects were supported on development stages, just because we moved some financial costs from production to, because of COVID, of course, to development. Yeah, so there was an additional call this year. It's difficult for me to say how many of those are co-productions. Yeah, but definitely, we are very much open for co-productions.
It's great to hear. Thank you. Chris, in Croatia, what are your co-production strategies for the future regarding documentaries? You mentioned that you are trying to have more minority co-productions. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think in general, the emphasis will be on, there will be greater emphasis on minority co-productions, whether for documentaries or other projects. The idea is that it encourages a cooperation, encourages storytelling that crosses borders. And so, you know, we will support our filmmakers to participate in events that will help them make the necessary connections and develop projects with partners. There's a great deal of interest amongst our filmmakers, and including documentary filmmakers, in doing so, and also working through the media program to do the same thing. So we're trying to join up the various strands of activity and push in that direction. Yeah, go ahead.
And do you have any specific focus on some countries, or it's wide open?
It's wide open. I mean, our focus typically is within the region, simply because of proximity, history, language, and so forth. But I think that's starting to change, and we're reaching beyond the region. I know that a number of our filmmakers are developing projects with other partners in Europe for the most part, but there's no particular limitation there, and I think it's good to promote wider cooperation, and so participation in events, whether you know, yours or in Leipzig or wherever it is. I mean, I think that supporting those activities is important, and we do support participation by our filmmakers. So, and there will be more of that.
Great. Vítězslav, I know that you do a lot of minority co-productions. What is your experience about them, and how do you see the future of it?
Well, it is also one of our priorities to have a lot of minor co-productions. Also, we see that this new generation of producers is more willing to attend co-production forums, pitching forums, and events like that. And they are much more open internationally than the previous generations. So we like to support this, and also long-term relationships, maybe with foreign productions. So this is criteria when we select projects to support for minority co-production. And yeah, there are some rules like that if you get supported for minority co-production, you have to spend 50% of the support for Czech crew or services. Of course, first you have to find Czech producer and the Czech producer will apply for the grant from Czech Film Fund. And of course, now the situation with COVID, I think it will probably cease the co-productions a little bit, at least what I hear from participants at co-production forums which are happening online. They are saying that it's not working very well, that maybe some people show interests, but then they don't really proceed with the cooperation. But I hope that this will last for maximum 1 more year, and it will get back somehow to normal. Also, nobody can wait like forever, and everybody needs some content. So I hope it will be back again.
We hope so. Thank you. Anna, what kind of international cooperation are you looking for at the Swedish Film Institute? Do you have like more regional focus, or are you also interested in a wider perspective?
It's common with co-productions within the Nordic region, but we also support other co-productions, of course. There's maybe just a tradition of co-producing between the Nordic countries because it's close and some languages are very similar. But this year, actually, we supported much more co-productions than usually. We received a lot of applications, and also we thought, let's try to support this, even though it's difficult now, but it's so important to keep up the international collaboration. So I hope that will continue. And it works similar as in most countries. You need a national, you need a Swedish producer that will submit the application. You need creative input from Sweden, and you also need distribution in Sweden to be able to apply.
So do you need to have a distribution company or sales from Sweden on board?
Yes, like the theatrical distribution or the Sweden. Usually it's the SVT, the public broadcaster in Sweden. Although we are now platform neutral, so it can be any kind of distribution, basically. We also look at the collaboration between the production companies and try to encourage long-term relationships between production companies. So it's really important that it's, I think, also like a natural collaboration that is built on a common idea on how to make films, what kind of films, and that it makes sense creatively to collaborate and not just financially.
Thank you so much. Ferenc, I've heard that you mentioned also that the Film Institute will put a stronger emphasis on international co-productions. Do you have any particular country you would like to strengthen the relationship with, or what is your co-production strategy in terms of documentaries?
There isn't any particular country or region or like that. I just checked before we started the Zoom conference that how it will change in the next year. And there is a very strong plan that the Institute would like to increase the possibility of the co-productions, not just in case of documentaries, but all kinds of categories, the animation film, short features, historical documentaries, TV films, TV series. So this is the goal. I don't know yet any particular details, but from the next year, everything will be changed, and from good direction, from the positive direction. It means that more possibilities, more chances, more opened doors. So I think the future, and hopefully the pandemic will stop sometimes in the next year. So the co-productions possibilities will increase because of that fact as well, I think.
Thank you. We received a few questions from our audience. To Ron, how many times in a year can you apply for the co-production grant, and would you support a project which has nothing to do with Norway?
So there's no deadline for the applications. There's no restriction as to how many times you can apply. And what was the next question again?
I think it was just one question.
Something about Norway, something?
Yes, that a project which has nothing to do with Norway.
Yes, we only have, we do like this kind of cultural product test we do of our own majors. When there's a co-production, the cultural test is kind of passed as soon as the institute or funding in the major country has supported the project. By that term, it's a cultural production. If it hasn't been funded by their own national institute or fund, then we kind of do like a basic evaluation of just determining whether or not this is a commercial or a documentary. If we define that it is a documentary, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with applying Norway for a minor production, even though the documentary itself has nothing to do with Norway. There might be a couple of other things, like as Anna was speaking of, like the evaluation things we do. We look at the project first, we look at the strategy second, and the strategy for documentaries in Norway right now is trying to build a bridge between Netherlands and France. But this is a strategy that will be changed next year, and we're not quite sure what countries will be in our focus then, but that's how it is now. That doesn't mean that Hungary cannot apply. It just means that if Hungary, it's like side-by-side project from Netherlands, then we would maybe tip over to the Netherlands side on that specific case. There's the third thing we look for is the terms of trade between the countries. So especially with SFI and Denmark and Sweden or Denmark and Finland, we have this kind of a exchange thing where we're basically looking for if we support their miners, we need them to support our miners. It's this kind of exchange in that sense. Then we have the terms of trade between the producers. Now, an interesting thing is that a project last year actually got support on the basis that the producer wanted to become better at applying the big European fund like Media or Arimage. He had that ambition with that application, and he actually got funding basis of his want to educate himself, which leads ourselves to the fifth point, which is artistic participation and education aspect. Of course, we look at the application itself and say that, okay, well, you apply for post-production in Norway, probably on this project. Is it the biggest spend that round, or it's kind of a coincidence sometimes? But these are the 5 points we're looking at when we're looking at production. And the short answer, no, it doesn't have to be specifically in Norway.
Thank you. To Chris, is there anything in specific that you look for projects who apply for minority co-production grants, and how much has to be shot in Croatia?
So if we're the main partner in the project, it would mean that the minority partner would have to have an obvious complementarity. There would be, that's that sort of review and recommendation, the artistic contribution, the track record, if there is one, but also, if it's a young creator, that could also be taken into account. So it really depends. There's no set criteria on choosing between projects and that are co-productions. It's very much in the hands of the artistic advisor to evaluate the merits of the project based on criteria that you've heard others elaborate. So there isn't anything special that we would do that others aren't doing in that area. No.
And how much has to be shot in Croatia? If we are the majority, if it's a Croatian project, our requirements are 80%, but it can go down from there.
depending on the needs of the project, what's available here and so forth. So our criteria are relatively flexible, I think, compared to others in Europe.
Thank you. And to Anna, could you tell us how much of the budget has to be spent in Sweden when applying to co-production fund, and how many people from the crew production have to be from Sweden?
There's no fixed percentage or amount, but it should be in strong relation to the amount that is received, the grant. Majority of the grant should be spent in Sweden, and it has to be, not all has to be creative spend. It can also be other parts of the post-production. But I would say common positions are editor or composer. So important positions within post-production, but sometimes it's also cinematographer, for example, if they apply at an earlier stage and haven't done a lot of shooting. But it doesn't have to have a Swedish theme, or it doesn't have to deal with Sweden in any way. It just have to have some sort of relevance for a Swedish audience.
Thank you so much. So time is almost up. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this panel. And I hope we will collaborate in the future. There are many amazing co-production opportunities around Europe. So I hope we will see each other and work with each other.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the information. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.